My guest today is DK Kang, licensed massage therapist, wellness educator, and the author of Mindset Metamorphosis and the Kimchi Connection. But DK isn't just another wellness voice. His message is born from fire. After walking alongside his wife through years of infertility, a traumatic endometriosis journey, and an aggressive cancer diagnosis, DK found himself at a crossroads. Breakdown or rebuild. He chose to rebuild. What started as research to support his wife became a way of life: plant-based nutrition, fermentation for gut health, and the reclaiming of mindset in the face of medical gaslighting and cultural disconnect. Today, he helps people take ownership of their health by simplifying what's on their plate, strengthening what's in their mind, and redefining what it means to heal. If you've ever felt dismissed by the systems, overwhelmed by change, or like food or is fighting against you, this conversation will shift something inside of you. Let's dive into the intersection of mindset, food, and the resilience you didn't know you had. But before we dive into this episode, y'all already know what time it is. Ride with me, y'all. Welcome to the Empowered Plates, Empowered Lives podcast. Y'all, welcome back to another episode of the Empowered Plates, Empowered Lives podcast. It's your healthy habits and lifestyle disruptor coach Jovonnie, and I'm here with DK Kang in the space where we are changing our lives one lifestyle change, one habit at a time. Welcome to the Empowered Plates, Empowered Lives podcast, DK.
Thank you for having me. That was quite an introduction. I love the energy.
Yes, sir. DK, take us back to that pivotal moment. 23 doctors, a mystery illness, a wife in pain. What did you begin to learn about the limitations of conventional care and the importance of really taking ownership?
Yeah. I don't know if it was 23 doctors, but it was a lot of doctors. So my wife and I went through infertility for about 10 years. Saw multiple doctors. My wife ended up having endometriosis, and that turned out to be complicated, and then surgeries after that. And then kind of flash forward to 2024, my wife is diagnosed with breast cancer. It's like January of 2024. And then she's going to start treatment in February of 2024. And so as she got diagnosed, I'm reading a book called The Breast Cancer Husband. And it basically says, you as a husband, be there for your wife for all her cancer treatments, things like that. And then as I'm finishing it, it says to let your employer know to ask for a more flexible work schedule so you can be at your wife's appointment. And so, I was very reluctant to talk to my management about it. But I was like, hey, the book said to do this, and all right, I'm going to go do it. So February 1st of 2024, I tell them, I said, hey, like, I'm willing to work weekends. I'll work extra nights or whatever it takes to, make up the hours and do what I need to do. And they said, yeah, that's fine. And then a week after I disclosed that, they decided to lay me off. Mm-hmm. And so, when you hear the word cancer, it's your world turns upside down. And then your world turns upside down when, you get laid off. And so it's kind of both of them happen at the same time. And so for me, it was, faith is a big part of our lives, my wife and I. And so after I got laid off that night, I came home, we prayed, but we didn't ask, why is this happening to us? Why does my wife get cancer? Why do I lose my job? Instead, we asked, why not us? And who can we help in the future? And so with that mindset, I was thinking when my wife started chemotherapy for cancer, there was a point where, my wife has already quit her job. There was a point where we didn't have any health insurance. And we get a bill for one chemo treatment was $80,000. I made a bunch of phone calls. I ended up getting Cobra insurance, and luckily it kicked in before she got her first chemo treatment. But as I was at her chemo treatments at the doctor's or the hospital, things like that, I was just journaling. And the journaling, I was just journaling down my thoughts because I was like, I felt really just stuck, stressed out, and overwhelmed. But then as I was journaling, I'm like, I was just kind of thinking in my head, like, well, I'm pretty sure I'm not the only one dealing with this kind of life situation or this kind of stress. And so my journaling it ended up being to help others deal with life circumstances, those adversities, those challenges, those setbacks. And because, it goes back to that, who can we help in the future because of what we're going through? And so my book, Mindset Metamorphosis, came about. And that was just like mindful breathing, how to deal with stress, meditation, dealing with stress, building like new habits, like starting small. I added all of these into the book. I talk about like sleep habits and, shutting down all electronics before like an hour before bed, because there's the blue light makes us think that it's still daylight, brings up the stress hormones. I talk about exercise, just start walking, getting out in nature in my book. And all these things help me to kind of get through this stage of our life of cancer, job loss, medical bills, and so for me it was a way for me to help people out. And so that's why and I talk about a fixed mindset versus a growth mindset. A fixed mindset is something where, let's say you've been working at a job for 20 years and you're like, I know what I'm doing. I don't need extra help. I don't need to learn anything new. While a growth mindset is like you're wanting to learn something new, a skill or some new knowledge. And that's something that we had to do because, with cancer, we didn't know anything about cancer. It just kind of hit us right in the face. So we started reading books. We read a book called Chris Beat Cancer. And if you're not familiar with who Chris Work is, he's the author of Chris Beat Cancer. Quick story, he was like 25, 26 years old, had extreme abdominal pain, checks into the ER. Doctor comes back and says, oh, you have stage 3 colon cancer. You have 6 months, 8 months to live. You might have a year if you do chemo, surgery, radiation. And he just did the surgery. And then he ended up just changing his entire, his foods, his nutrition. And he did a lot of research, and it was basically a whole food plant-based diet. And so for us, we had to see who has walked through cancer, what did they do, and how are they thriving. And so after we read that book, we're like, all right, let's go a whole food plant-based diet. And give you an example. So my wife is cancer-free as of February of 2025. So it was a year-long treatment. But my wife has to do surveillance because it was an aggressive cancer. So she has to do surveillance for another 2 years. And about 3 weeks ago, maybe a month ago now, my wife is seeing her doctor. Doctor walks in and she just says, wow, I am absolutely amazed. Like, you look amazing, telling my wife this. And she's like, whatever you're doing, keep doing what you're doing because you are the best looking patient that I have seen in a very, very long time. And that spoke volume to me and to us because we're like, it's really the nutrition, and the nutrition is huge. And so that's something that we had to really have that growth mindset. We learned about cancer. We learned about nutrition. There's multiple books, like Beating Cancer with Nutrition is a book that we read. The Rainbow Diet is a book that we read. Your plate should be multicolored, like the colors of the rainbow, because we're going to get different nutrients and vitamins from those different plant-based color foods. And so, there's a documentary we watch. It's called Live to 100. And it's basically people, there's like 6 cities in the world. There's only 6 of them. They're called blue zones. And there are people that live to 100 consecutively for like the last 50 years. And a lot of it has to do with their diet. A lot of it is a plant-based diet. And so, if you think about like here in the United States, it's called the standard American diet, which spells sad. The standard American diet is ultra processed foods, it's fast foods, it's sugary drinks, and all those leads up to heart disease, obesity, autoimmune diseases. And if we think about like the foods that we put in is a big component of how we're going to feel. And so we had to just completely change our diet, completely plant-based, and honestly we feel really good. And for me, I grew up on a Korean diet, which is a lot of vegetables and fermented foods, and so my wife had to kind of adjust. But when it's life or death, or when you're fighting a disease, you do what you got to do. And so that's kind of a little bit of a story, kind of my journey. We're still kind of on it. I mean, but yeah, at this point, I want people to, I want to educate people about cancer, about the nutrition, about what we put in our bodies is going to be an outcome. An example would be if you had one car in your entire lifetime, how would you treat your car? It's the same with our body. We have one body in this lifetime. How are we going to treat it? We got one mind. How are we going to treat it? We got one life. There's no do-overs. So what are you going to put in your system to make you live to 100, or to make you feel good, or to be more productive or more functional? Yeah.
Thank you for walking us through that, DK. Something that I would love for our listeners to get out of this is, what did that look like? What were some of those meals that consisted of the plant-based, whole foods diet? Give us some examples of what meals were your typical go-to in the event they're like, okay, you say plant-based whole foods. Like,
Yeah.
what is that for someone who doesn't quite understand or get it? What could be beneficial in the event that they know someone or in this situation, or they want to prevent that from happening and they want to better take care of themselves? What did that look like?
Yeah, so I mean, it depends on preference, but for me, I mean, it was anything that was a fruit or a vegetable, and minimize the the processed foods as much as you can. So for us, it would be like salads, like a lot of greens. Throw in some nuts and seeds in there. That was a big thing for us. Juicing was a big one. Chris Work talked about, he drank like 64 ounces of carrot juice. So we implemented carrot juice into our diet. And then another thing is we implemented broccoli sprouts. That was so if you look at broccoli sprouts has 10 times more cancer fighting compounds than regular broccoli does. And so we looked up how to grow our own. We started growing our own. We threw it in our salads. We threw it in our smoothies. So another big one was smoothies for us. My recipe is some unsweetened almond milk, a little bit of like a vegan protein powder, and then a lot of greens, like 2 handfuls of spinach or arugula leaves, just some sort of greens. And then I throw a whole carrot in, and then some frozen blueberries, and then I blend that up, and that's pretty much my wife's and I's breakfast every day. But like lunches, it was a lot of. I mean, we ate a lot of rice. I mean, that's kind of an Asian thing, but rice with kimchi. If you're familiar with kimchi, it's a Korean fermented food. So we just added kimchi into our diets because kimchi has a lot of fermented food, which is like a lot of probiotics, a lot of vitamins, a lot of minerals that goes with it, fiber with it. And so, yeah, I mean, kimchi was great for us. Seaweed was a big one. I mean, that's part of a Korean diet, but anything like radishes, celery, we did a lot of celery juicing as well. So those are some of the things that we kind of implemented. And if a good resource is called the Rainbow Diet. It kind of tells you like, hey, start integrating like the purple color. We did like a red cabbage and basically sauteed that, just ate it with with like a black rice, or like a brown rice with it. And then we added like radishes and, different greens. And, we rotated things out. So that's something that kind of helped us.
Thank you, DK. And I hope y'all are getting it. Drop the word purple if you're still here with us. The last thing you talked about was the purple cabbage. Drop the word purple in the comments if you're still vibing with us and listening and tuning in. And I also want to let you guys know as well, check the show notes. There's a plant-based alternative guide that I created just for you. I wanted you to be able to get those anti-inflammatory healthy swaps. And you may not know what those actually are. And so it's really a functional nutritional guide. And it tells you what are the nutritional benefits you're getting from these fruits, these vegetables, these grains. And it gives you juice recipes, smoothie recipes, plant-based options to cook, raw plant-based option meals. And so I really wanted you to have this tool. It's in the show notes. It's called the Plant-Based Alternative Guide. And you can apply that to what DK is talking about right now. If you have no idea, you'll be able to find those swaps to go with this way to change your plate. So DK, something else that you mentioned, I'm really glad that you broke down what that smoothie looked like. And you were specific on the ingredients. You said that unsweetened almond milk. You talked about the fruits and the vegetables that you utilize. You talked about the different juice recipes, and I'm all for juicing and good juices. I love a good carrot pineapple juice. I really like a good carrot pineapple juice. Like that combination right there, like just to keep it simplified and going. One of my clients who has experience with adenomyosis loves carrot pineapple juice as well. And my mom loves celery juice as well. I love a good celery apple or celery pineapple. Like I have to get like one little fruit to go in just to help my palate. I'm not someone who can go a lot on bitter juices. But I'm all for it because I'm not using any additional sweeteners. I know some people might use like agave or honey or something like that. I can just go straight on like just providing the right natural sweet fruit with the vegetable to pair it, and it is absolutely amazing. So I'm really glad. First, I'm grateful that your wife had someone like you to be so supportive. Like hearing that diagnosis, some people would just crumble at the thought of the fear taking over, and yours was like, how do I get faithful within my commitment to my wife, with the understanding this is what we need to do. I'm owning it. I'm having a growth mindset. How are we going about doing it? And you started with reading. Then you started getting into documentaries. You didn't just say, here, this is what you should do because you have the diagnosis. This is what we're going to do. And we're doing this together because we're in this together. And I'm really grateful for that, DK. Something else that you said that I really absolutely loved is you said, this is life or death. And you talked about treating your body, your life, as if it was the one car that you ever would have in your entire life. And I think sometimes we get into a stage or a place in life and we feel as though we're invincible. We can eat whatever, do whatever, treat our bodies whatever, allow ourselves to be in relationships that we shouldn't for long periods of time, knowing that it's not serving us. And there's a lot of things, I like to call them lifestyle disruptors. There's so many different environmental factors, stress factors, food factors, movement factors, mindset issues. There's so many different ways that our lifestyle could either be helping us or hurting us, helping us live better, thrive, or just barely survive and get through. And so I'm really grateful that we kind of started getting into this. And I'm glad you brought in mindset, because your thoughts, your feelings, and your beliefs, that set the stage for your wife being able to have that aggressive form of cancer and then go into remission and still be cancer free and be one of the best looking patients that oncologists have ever seen. And I think that's really good. And I also love that you brought your culture into it and you made the book, The Kimchi Connection, just because you wanted people to be educated on fermented foods, gut health, and how beneficial that is. Do you want to talk a little bit more about how your Kimchi Connection book came into play, and if you've really seen some true radical shifts for people by just incorporating kimchi more often in some of the ways they like to try it out?
Yeah. So, you mentioned about so many people kind of walk away or they just kind of give up, right? So when I pretty much went to all my wife's treatments, and there was a point where, I saw the medical staff like, once or twice, 3 times a week, sometimes even. And there was a point where a lot of the medical staff, like the medical assistant, the nurses, they actually pulled me aside and they told me, they're just like, we're really inspired by you and we really admire what you're doing for your wife. And because they were telling me that it's like 70 or 80% of women that are married that are going through some sort of cancer, most of the men or the husband basically bail out. They just like they file for divorce. They're like, you deal with it, and just like they just walk away. And so, I was just thinking, I was like, that's a really high number. I was shocked. I was like
Very
70,
high number.
80% guys just give up. And but for me, it was a mind shift. It was a mindset shift for me. Like I'm going to be here for my wife no matter what. And so, and that went for everything. I was like, because there's a lot of times where, the wife is dealing with cancer, but the husband's like, oh, I'm still going to eat whatever I want to eat. I'm going to go eat my hamburgers and fries and, the milkshake or whatever. But their wife is trying to change it. But if it's like, if two people are trying to accomplish a goal, but they're separate, going in two different directions, the wife will eventually get back to eating the sad diet again because there's influence with the husband. And so for me, I didn't want that. I'm like, we're both all in this together. And so yeah, like I just thought like, man, like as you were saying that, like just to walk away, like it's very true. And but to how my kimchi connection cookbook came about. So for me, I grew up in Missouri. My parents owned a restaurant. It was a Chinese Korean restaurant. And growing up in a Korean household, I ate kimchi breakfast, lunch, and dinner. I would bring it to school. People made fun of me because they didn't know what it was, especially back in, the early 90s, and kids are, they could be mean sometimes, but but it was a part of my culture. So I always had it around me. And then I moved to Texas in 2016 and I was like, man, I am missing some kimchi like in my fridge. So I went out to the store, bought some kimchi. I tried it, and I was like, man, there is something wrong with this. There was like this like chemical taste to it. Like it was like a manufactured taste to it. And I did not like it. And it was in a plastic container. And then, when you put especially kimchi in a plastic container, it starts absorbing the microplastics and then you start ingesting it and microplastics causes cancer and things like that. And every time I bought a jar, it was always in plastic. I was like, and it just did not taste good. So I went back to Missouri in 2017 and I learned my recipe from my mom. She taught me, we spent the entire day. I was like, hey, just teach me this because I want to be able to make it myself. And I want to know exactly what goes in the kimchi. And I'm going to put it in glass jars and to preserve the taste and not have that plastic taste. So, my mom taught me. I came back to Texas. I made my own batch. And then, I would bring it to work. And then my coworker would be, he would ask me like, hey, what is that? And I was like, oh, it's just, it's kimchi. And I was like, hey, do you want to try some? And he's like, yeah. And then he ended up liking it. And then he started adding it to all like he just was eating it out of the jar and just eating it with salads. And he was like, I love this stuff. And then he started telling other people. And then word got out was like, hey, can we buy a jar? And I was like, I'm not really selling it, but okay, sure. Like here's a jar for you, or whatever. And he told somebody and then they told somebody. And then it got to the point where I got the same question over and over of what do I do with kimchi? Do I just eat it out of the jar? What do I do with it? And I was like, oh, you start incorporating into different meals, different dishes some that are yours, like throw it on top of pizza, throw it in burgers, throw in, in tacos and throw it in your chili or spaghetti. And I was like, just incorporate it into your own cuisine, your own culture. Cause I want you to get the probiotics and, the gut health that goes with it. And so that's kind of how my book kind of came about, is integrating kimchi into different dishes. But at the same time, I wanted to educate people of the benefits of fermented foods, the benefits of kimchi with probiotics, reducing inflammation, and if you look at your gut, there's a huge gut brain connection. Like your gut is like your second brain. And about 70% of your immune system sits in your gut. People talk about a leaky gut. Well, what is a leaky gut? That means you don't have the good bacteria in there to seal your gut because of all the processed foods. And so, you start having a leaky gut. But with probiotics and fermented foods, it seals it and helps build your immune system because of all the nutrients that goes with it. And so, yeah, for me, I just wanted to like share my culture with people, but I wanted to educate people of like, hey, start incorporating it. And a funny story, or not a funny story, but an interesting story. On I was on another podcast, and she was talking about autoimmune diseases, and she had a friend that had, like, I don't know, 5 or 6 autoimmune diseases, seen multiple doctors. Doctors kept giving her a pill after pill after pill after pill. And she's like, I need to figure something out because all the pills were giving me so much side effects and it's making me feel worse. So she ended up just changing her diet into adding fermented food, basically like kimchi and sauerkraut, into every meal. And then I think she said within like 6 weeks, her symptoms started to reverse of the autoimmune disease. Because autoimmune diseases are basically like inflammation, and your body just doesn't know what to do with like all the processed foods and all the inflammation. So it starts attacking your own immune system, basically, because that's why it's called an autoimmune disease. And so she just started adding sauerkraut, kimchi, breakfast, lunch, and dinner. And yeah, she started reversing all her diseases. And then I think within 6 months, she was not going to the doctor anymore. And she reduced all her inflammation. And she's like, I'm not taking any of these pills no more. And I was like, wow, that's amazing. Like, and that's just from fermented foods. And so she's like, the host of the other one, she was like, my friend did this, so I'm gonna start incorporating fermented foods in my own meals and see what happens. So, fermented foods are a big part that we should start incorporating into our own lives. Yeah.
Is there like a issue, like could someone have too much fermented food in their body, and if like consuming too much, because like you said, you eat it breakfast, lunch, and dinner, like is there ever too much? They say moderation is key, but but at some point, and I feel like DK, you're talking because fermented foods and something that typically people are overeating anyway. We're not getting enough of it. But is there anything that happens or a sign in your body that says, okay, you might be having too much fermented foods? And I'm glad that you said something about kimchi and sauerkraut in the event that someone wants a little variety of how they're incorporating it into their lifestyle.
Yeah, I mean, you can do miso as well. Miso is a fermented food. I mean, yogurt, but I don't do dairy, so but I grew up with kimchi, so like I said, I ate it breakfast, lunch, and dinner. But for someone who's starting out, who's never had much fermented foods in their diet ever before, you're gonna feel some discomfort. There might be maybe some gas or some bloating because your body's like, I don't know what this is. This is new and foreign. And so, like, I would say as you're starting out, start with 1 or 2 like tablespoons just per day, and then build it up gradually if you can tolerate more. Start with 3 weeks with 1 or 2 tablespoons just a day. It doesn't have to be breakfast, lunch, or dinner. Just slowly add it in, and then eventually get to like 1 to 2 cups per meal or per day. It doesn't bother me because I've eaten it for so long. But for my, like, giving you an example, my wife, she had to start very, very like small pieces. She would like eat 1 bite of like kimchi or sauerkraut or something, and that was it for the day. And then now she's slowly taking like about 6 bites per meal now, or per day now. So, and I mean, I don't think there's a point where you're gonna be eating too much fermented foods, just because, I mean, I ate like a whole cup for breakfast, lunch, and dinner, cup of kimchi with my meal. So, and I mean, I feel fine. I feel great. But yeah, initially there might be some discomfort. There might be some gas. Yeah.
Okay. I just wanted to ask just in
Yeah.
case, because, you know, some people, if they're trying something different, they don't know what to expect. Is a normal, okay. And then I also know people who try different things too. If they see a negative impact first, like you said, the gas, the bloating, some discomfort, it's like, oh, no, that didn't sit well for me. That's not for me. Just knowing that it takes time for your body to get adjusted to something, especially something good that's happening on top of a lot of bad or other things that's happening in your body before you even introduce it to something else, or try to communicate it in a different way. Many of our listeners deal with fatigue, hormone imbalance, inflammation, as you were talking about earlier. What are 3 small sustainable food shifts they can make this week that can actually help move the needle for them?
3 small things to help move the needle. I'll say eat your favorite fruit. You know, for me, like I love like summertime, and I love getting a whole watermelon. I would just eat like a whole watermelon by myself if given the chance. But you know, start with something that you already like a fruit or vegetable. So that's one thing. Go to the frozen section, like the organic blueberries. You know, you can add blueberries to granola, or you know, your yogurt or a smoothie. You know, blueberries are really great with antioxidants. It's a blue color. It's that dark. It's got good fiber. So that's, you know, 2 things like that. Third thing, I would say, add some sort of like make your own juice. Get like a juicer, and whether it be carrot juice, celery juice, add an apple in it, add some pineapple, whatever. But just start somewhere. Don't just sit back and like, oh, I'm going to get better by doing nothing. Like, no, like you got to take some sort of action. And sometimes that action is like, hey, I'm going to go get a juicer, and I'm just going to juice the night before, put a good lid on it, and I get my juice in the morning. And you know, juicing, honestly, there's so much like vitamins. It's very energetic when you drink a juice like that you freshly juiced. You just feel so much energy. Like it really is awesome.
You do. You definitely do. And people are like, oh my goodness, what is going on with that person? So up and vibrant. And it really is. So y'all, if you just caught those 3 sustainable small shifts, go ahead and drop the word juice in the comments if you're still vibing with us. And if you're tuning and you're really enjoying this episode, y'all, guess what? I want you to know that you can hit that subscribe button if you're watching us on YouTube, and you can hit that follow button if you're listening on your favorite podcast distribution platform. Let the system know, the algorithm know that we're giving good vibes, good value. So make sure you subscribe, like this video, or hit the follow and give the podcast a rating. So DK, we talked about those 3 shifts that people can start making: eating more of their favorite fruit or vegetable, getting in some juice, and tapping into the benefits of blueberries and having it in its own variety in a way that you would like to consume it. I kind of want to talk a little bit about your philosophy for helping people build that long-term nourishing relationship with food. What is that philosophy so other people can really silence all the noise there is of all these different lifestyles? How do you help them? What is your philosophy for building long-term nourishing relationships?
You know, for me, I think it's food is medicine. You know, very simple. Give you an example. I did an experiment on myself when I was 12 years old. Okay. So for me, I've done martial arts all my life since I was 5 years old. And because my parents owned a restaurant, I drank a lot of soda growing up as a kid because it was readily available for me. And so the experiment I did when I was 12 years old, I drank soda, I ran 3 miles, and I wanted to see what my performance was going to be like after drinking soda. And my performance was terrible. I felt thirsty. I felt very tired. I'm like, I can't, how am I going to run 3 miles? I just felt terrible. The next day, I opted out of soda, drank water, ran the same 3 miles, same conditions, same time and everything. And as I was running it, I felt amazing. I was like, wow. After I got done, I'm like, I'm going to go run another 3 miles because I just felt great. And so my philosophy is food is medicine. the things that you put in your mouth and into your system directly affects your performance in anything, whether it be athletic performance, whether it be brain power, like trying to concentrate harder. Think about it. Like, why does coffee give you that like jolt of like, oh, I have so much energy and things like that? It's the caffeine. But what if you replaced it with juice, like juicing? Or what if we replaced, you know, like think about like garbage in, garbage out, right? So for me, it was, I mean, ever since I, when I was 12 years old and I did that experience on me, I stopped drinking soda. I have not touched it since 12 years old because I know how it affects me. Same thing with fast food. You know, I'm human. I have eaten fast food before. I'm sure everybody has. And after I ate it, I don't feel good. Like my mind is telling me, hey, I need to go work out, but my body's like, no, I feel very sluggish. I feel like I want to go take a nap. And because that directly correlates to my performance. And if we're eating fast food all the time at work or eating out all the time, how is that affecting our work? You know, we're not performing better as best as we can. So yeah, I think the right foods will heal your mind and heal your body.
I appreciate that. Thank you. Let's kind of get into because I love the conversation of food, but I honestly believe, DK, when you talk about food and you're making food changes, lifestyle changes, habit changes, you're incorporating, making those swaps and seeing how they align with your body, how your body responds, it really starts with your mindset, those thoughts, those feelings, those beliefs, because then they impact the choices that you make, the decisions you make to have something different or whatever it is you're planning to have that starts creating that lifestyle. You have the book Mindset Metamorphosis. What do people often get wrong about discipline? And how do we start building that mental resilience without burnout or feeling overwhelmed?
Yeah. I think people get wrong what discipline is like um they think like discipline is like you're going to like you when you do something wrong, you're going to get some sort of punishment behind that. And I think that's not really what discipline is. Like discipline is like showing up. You know, it's like when let's say you hate your job, but you still show up every day, right? Because you know that you need a paycheck to provide for your family, even though you hate your job. I mean, you know, you there that's discipline right there. It's showing up because you know the why. And so, you know, I think changing that mindset is huge um, to build resilience because it's like you have to start small. You know, if you think about Rome wasn't built in a day, the world wasn't built in a day. We don't learn how to drive or we don't learn how to walk in a day. I mean, we don't tell a baby they tried once, one day, they fall on their butt. We don't tell them like, oh, you did a great job. You're never going to walk ever in your life. Like, why would we do that to ourselves? Like, we do that to ourselves as adults, right? Like, oh, I tried this business or I tried this one carrot. I didn't like it. I tried kimchi. I didn't like it. You know, but I think it's starting small
I
and
tried this
build.
one juice. I didn't like it.
Right, yeah, you know, but we don't tell like kids like, oh, like you tried to walk once and you're just never going to walk, or you know, or learning how to drive. We didn't learn how to drive in a day. We took driver's ed, and you know, like there's so many components. You got to look at your rears, you got put the gas pedal, when do I hit the brake, when do I steer. There's so much going on, right? But as you do it little by little, you get better and better. And so same thing with like building habits, building that resilience. You know, you don't just wake up and run a marathon. You know, start small. You're like, okay, I'm going to start with a 5K, see if I could do that. Like, who in their right mind is going to run a marathon just from the get go? Like, who in their right mind is going to say, like, oh, I'm going to eat 10 pounds of cabbage, or like, you know, for me, start small and start building that up. Because if you like, give you an example, if you think about, let's say you take a rock, like a giant rock, then you take just a bucket of water, just pour it on the water, right? Once. What happens? The rock just gets wet. But what happens when you take that same rock and a bucket of water and you slowly do one drop at a time on that rock? Well, before you know it, there's going to be a hole in that rock based on that one consistent drop of water on that rock. And it's the same thing for our lives. We as humans like to consume things in small things, and then we like to like, oh, I'm getting a little bit better at it, so let's add some more. Another example, I call this habit stacking in my book, and it's probably known by other people like James Clear and things like that.
Yeah.
An example is like, let's say you brew your coffee every morning. That's a habit you do every single morning. And let's just say it takes 2 minutes to brew your coffee, right? Well, instead of scrolling on your phone, like social media or looking at the news or whatever, wasting time that we're doing, that 2 minutes, instead of waiting around, and let's say you have your goal is to lose 10 pounds. Well, during that 2 minutes, instead of scrolling on social media, just go outside, walk to the mailbox and back, or do one push-up. And then people are like, oh, it's just one push-up though. But if you think about it, one push-up every single day when you brew your coffee, it's a habit you're already doing. That's 365 push-ups that you'll do, or 365 times you walk to the mailbox. Like, how many steps is that in a year's time frame? And then as you get better, you're like, oh, I'm starting to lose, like I lost a pound. Oh, I can maybe do 2 push-ups. Oh, let me walk to the neighbor's mailbox now. And so, and then you're going to do it faster because you're getting better at it. But it's starting those small little habits. It's starting those small, consistent behavior habits that builds that resilience up.
Thank you, DK. I think one, you said start small, not go large, go big. Something I also like to say that goes along with starting small is be realistic with what it is that you're doing. Because if it's not realistic, then it won't be sustainable. It won't be something that you could continue doing regularly, especially like if it costs money and you don't typically have a budget for that, or if it's something that's just way outside of your personality and you're trying and it's not like something you would typically do, but you're doing it because you said you're going to do it. Like, you really want to ensure that it's sustainable and realistic. And then, like you said, I love the way you broke down like the compounding interest. That would have been 365 push-ups you never would have did at all, let alone now how is your body benefiting from getting in those 365 push-ups over that time frame of day because you decided I'm going to do at least one push-up a day. And so it's really that compounding interest and impact that you're providing for your body because you're choosing and doing something differently. And so I'm really grateful that you broke that down in regards to mindset resilience and really habit stacking and finding where you can just incorporate healthier choices that help you start creating a new lifestyle. And so I really am grateful that you broke it down. Something you talked about early on in the episode, in the show, and I didn't stop you there because you kind of was really getting into your story, was about how you lost your job and experiencing kind of like, man, I read this book. The book said, I'm going to need to ask my job for some flexibility. My wife is navigating a cancer diagnosis. And then a week later, you don't have a job anymore. How did you emotionally anchor yourself during that time? And what role did mindset play in choosing hope instead of feeling hopelessness?
Yeah. So, I mean, for me, my mind went to, it's business. I get that I became a liability, but for me, I'm like, there's other jobs out there. There's hundreds of jobs out there. But for me, I didn't like blame them. I wasn't angry at them. I wasn't angry at God. It was just, I was like, it is what it is. But it gave me an opportunity to well, I'm going to use this opportunity to be there for my wife. And so, yeah, you can go 100 different ways to think about it or whatever. But for me, I was like, well, I'm going to own up to it. And as long as my mind and my conscience is clear, like I was like, hey, I did the right thing and this is what happened. Well, it's on them then. And for me, I had a clear conscience and I was just like, I just saw an opportunity just to be there for my wife, to, and honestly, I probably would have never written a book if that hadn't happened. Um, so I don't know. I think the mindset was just, like I said, after I got laid off, I came home. I didn't ask why us. I asked why not us, and who can we help. Uh, and I think that was just my mind frame, was we're going through some crazy stuff, but I want to help someone else out there that may or may not be going through something similar. And like I said, faith is a big part of our lives. So for me, a morning routine is to read the Bible, just be in God's word. And that kind of helped grounded me to not get so emotional of like, oh, like, what am I going to do? And, for me, it's like, there's a scripture that comes to my mind. I think it's like First Corinthians. It says, so whether you eat or drink or whatever you do it all for the glory of God. And so I'm like, I'm going to honor God by being there for my wife. I'm going to honor God by um, writing a book to help serve somebody else, to help them out. And I think that was just my mindset going in. And yeah, it's hard in the moment. And sometimes we kind of don't see or understand why or things are happening. But for me, I had to own it. I didn't want to be a victim of woe is us and there's nothing we can do. Uh, but for me, I was just like, let's learn. Let's learn as much as we can. And like I said, there's plenty of jobs out there. I mean, given that I was out of work for 10 months, but you know, it was, for me, it was an opportunity to be there for my wife, and that speaks volume to me, because going through cancer is not easy. It's probably one of the hardest things that somebody will go through in their life. And I'm not the one going through it. So if I can be the best supporter, the best cheerleader for my wife to help her on her journey, then so be it.
And that's a powerful place to come from, DK, because I feel like as soon as someone probably would said, okay, now I lost my job, they're thinking, okay, how am I going to afford the medical bills, the options? What does this look like for the quality of care? What does this look like for how I could actually show up? And I'm so glad that, you said, oh, okay, for this job, I'm just now a liability instead of asset, which I was prior to letting them know. But my wife is an asset to me. And so I'm okay with what I did in regards to it. And I'm owning this, and I'm owning this journey. Something I love that you said was, why not me? And sometimes I think we get in the place where a lot of people like to say, well, why me? Why me? Why me? Versus why not me? And it's such an empowering space and source to come from when it's a why not me thought process, belief process, feeling process versus a why me. And so if you're listening to this right now and you were struggling with some type of thought, or it was something that you've experienced that you were just kind of like, well, why me? I want you to drop why not me, because there's so many of us that have to have this pain or have this problem for us to be able to evolve and be able to develop into the person and the impact that we were created to provide and give. And it has to come from a place that we had to really, I don't want to say struggle, but a place where we even had to develop. And I think that's a big thing. And so for me, DK, being diagnosed with stage 4 endometriosis, adenomyosis, polycystic ovarian syndrome, fibroids, right before the pandemic, the last surgery before the pandemic hit, March 2020, I was like, well, why me? Like someone who did the health backgrounds, who thought I was living the right way or healthy. And it really was, why not me? And it came at a point where now the world shuts down. So all I have to take care of is me versus me showing up, taking care of students, taking care of multiple job responsibilities. Now it's a slower pace of living, a way where we're not out and about. Like it was really at a place where I had to be aware of myself, and then start to really at a place now where I've learned so much, DK, and you know how it is. You take it one day at a time with this journey. Now I realized I needed to be on a journey to better love myself and to care for myself. And had I not had those diagnoses, had I not had that deep infiltration of inflammation in my body, that state, I wouldn't be where I am right now. There wouldn't be an Empowered Plates, Empowered Lives podcast, because I wouldn't want to hear from other people sharing their empowering journeys, their journeys of strength based on whatever it is that they navigated, and how they're naturally, holistically showing up, doing better, living better, moving from surviving into thriving. And so we get into this place that we don't even recognize, DK, that we have all of these things happen in our lifestyle that's causing us to be sick, that's causing us to stay stagnant, that's causing us to not live in a way that is truly the essence of our vitality. And so I'm really grateful that you had that mindset to say, why not me, and not be afraid of leaning in instead of falling back into what it could have looked like if you allowed those fearful thoughts, the less than, the low vibrational circumstances that could have happened. You could have been that husband or that supporter, and you chose not to. And I'm just so grateful that you did that. And I'm grateful that you have a story, you have books that you've now created, and a movement that you shared in order to provide that. And so for someone listening right now, DK, who's in the middle of their own storm, what's one belief they need to let go of and one they need to hold on to right
now? I would say don't run away. Running away is easy. I give you an example. So, as my wife was going through, her cancer treatments, things like that, and I was pretty much at all her appointments, and I saw the nursing staff, the medical staff on a pretty regular basis, like 2-3 times a week sometimes, and they pulled me aside and they just said, like, hey, you know what? We are really inspired by you and we admire you. And they told me the statistics. When a wife gets cancer, they said about 70 to 80% of the husbands or the spouse or whatever bail out. They run away. And they said, we just admire you because you have stuck by your wife's side, even in the face of all these challenges. And so, like I said, I've done martial arts all my life. When you're sparring somebody, when those kicks and punches are coming at your face, it's the same with life. You're going to have unexpected punches, unexpected kicks to your face or your body or whatever. And most people, what they want to do is they want to run away from it. And that's the easiest thing to do, is to run away, give up, whatever. But instead of running away, face it head on. Because running away is not going to solve the problem. When someone's trying to punch you in the face, like in sparring, martial arts wise, if you learn how you're going to respond to that, it's the same with life. It'll teach you how to respond when life knocks you down, when life punches you in the face, like a cancer diagnosis or a job loss. And for me, I say, learn how to respond, but not running away from it. Because running away, it doesn't do you any good. Solve that problem, face it head on, and keep going. Don't lose hope, and get some help from other people. So maybe that's like 3. I don't know.
No, that works out. Don't run away and face it head on. I like it. I'm with it. I am with it. All right. So, DK, we're going to get into our lightning round. All right. We call it the Vitality Sparks. All right. So, we're going to get into it. So, the first thing that comes to your mind, quick responses, and then we'll get into our last 2 questions. Okay. So, one food that changed your relationship with health.
One food that changed, broccoli sprouts.
All right. One belief you've completely outgrown.
It's okay to fail. Or no, it's not okay, or outgrown.
Something you've outgrown. Yep. A belief you've outgrown.
That's a tough one. I guess a belief that I guess I know everything about one subject. I've
Okay.
outgrown that. There's always something to learn.
A documentary or book you recommend to anyone starting this journey?
I mean, I'll recommend my book, Mindset Metamorphosis, for sure. But outside of my book, I would say The Compound Effect, and I would say a documentary. Live to 100. It's on Netflix. Another one is called The Game Changers. It's about a whole food, plant-based diet and how it does with athletic performance.
I love The Game Changers. And we're going to take a brief pause because I'm the host and I can do it. So we talked about the blue zones before, and that was another question that I wanted to kind of talk about. You said there were 6 major cities. What were those cities?
Oh, so there's one in California. There's one in Italy. I don't know that actual city. You have to watch the documentary. I know Okinawa is one of them. I think there's one I think Greece is one, and I forget the other 2.
Okay. All right. Just want to do that. All right. And now we're about to go play back into the Vitality Sparks round. Okay. Complete this sentence. Healing begins when?
Healing begins when you start.
What's your hope for every person who hears this episode?
My hope would be take one nugget and implement it into your life. Take that action.
There you go. And DK didn't mean like a chicken nugget, y'all. We're talking plant-based, whole foods. He's talking about gym, valuable thought. So don't run and be like, well, DK said to go get that nugget. So I just wanted to say that. So DK, give some advice for the spouses, the partners, the girl dads, the role models of those who are struggling with endometriosis, adenomyosis, polycystic ovarian syndrome, fibroids, those dealing with heavy, painful periods, pelvic pain. What would you say to them to get them more part of this supportive healing journey?
I would say a couple things. I would say first, start with your diet. Change your diet, and then start changing your mindset, and then take action. Whatever you're learning, take that action. Because we could easily read a book and not done anything about it. It's like, oh, that's good information. But yeah, like take that action.
So as a husband of someone with endometriosis, what would you tell another husband with someone dealing with endometriosis?
I mean, my wife has dealt with endometriosis. And I would say just be there. Be there for them emotionally, physically. Endometriosis is a very rough disease. But as far as I know, when you start changing your diet and bringing down the stress, it can help with endometriosis.
Thank you.
So, but yeah, be there for your spouse.
If you could have a meal with any historical figure, who would it be and what would you all eat?
Ooh, historical figure. Man. Like living or dead or just dead,
Doesn't
right?
matter. Any historical figure. It's all up to you.
Historical figure. I would say Jesus.
And what would you or Jesus eat?
Bread, I think. Honestly, because back then bread was not the same as it is today. Like bread is genetically modified, and so I would love to taste what bread tasted like back then.
All right. All right. So drop me in the comments if you were like me and you thought that DK was going to say him and Jesus were going to eat some kimchi, because that's what I thought he was going to say. He did not. So he shot me. But if you thought DK was going to say kimchi, drop me in the comments and let me know if you thought the same thing I thought. But he went with the bread. DK, let everybody know where they can find you, connect with you, find what you have to offer.
Yeah, you can find me at my website, dkkang.com. And if you sign up for my newsletter on my website, I'm actually giving away the first chapter of Mindset Metamorphosis as a free download to start helping people start taking some action for their life and start transforming their minds. I'm on a lot of the socials, but I usually don't respond. best way to connect with me is email, which is dk@dkkang.com. I usually typically respond in about 2 to 3 days. And, for me, I'm just willing to help people in any way I can. So if you message me or like email me or something, have a question, I'm more than willing to answer it or even help you or guide you to the right resources if need be. Both my books are on Amazon. The Kimchi Connection Cookbook is as a Kindle and as a paperback. And then the Mindset Metamorphosis is on Audible, and it's on Kindle, and it's on paperback as well.
Thank you, DK. I really appreciate it and enjoy this conversation. So, y'all, if today's episode hit home for you, I want you to grab the Lifestyle Disruptors Guide. It breaks down the 15 hidden triggers that could be fueling your pain, your fatigue, and your inflammation. And when you're ready, take the Spot Your Triggers quiz to find out which disruptors are affecting you the most right now. It's eye-opening, and it's your first step to finally reset your rhythm and start feeling like you again. You can hit the show notes to get all the information for DK as well as from 4 Vibrations. Y'all, I just wanted to remind you of this as we close out this episode. When life breaks you open, the plate becomes a place of power. Food isn't just fuel. It's medicine, it's mindset, and it's a mirror. Y'all, it's your Healthy Habits and Lifestyle Coach Jovonnie, host of the Empire Plates, Empire Lives podcast. Thanks for vibing with me, y'all.